Welcome to the Atheist in Recovery podcast, where we talk about finding hope in recovery. And now your host, Dr. Adina Silvestri.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 16 of the Atheists in Recovery podcast. And today is a solo episode. Today, I thought we would focus solely on navigating difficult relationships and a non-traditional recovery. And so for this one, I asked for a little help from my friends. And I took a poll on some of the social media outlets just to kind of find out what people were thinking of. What would have been helpful, or what is helpful for individuals that regularly attend AA meetings, maybe by choice, maybe because AA is the biggest game in town and they want to feel comfortable in these meetings. They want to find their people. They want to connect. They want to come out of the atheist closet. How do they do that? So I thought that I would focus on those questions today. And so this is how I want us to kind of go through our journey with this podcast today. Is I received a lot of comments, which, I think is great. This is obviously something that needs to be discussed more often. And I narrowed the comments down to 4 categories. And then, so I'll talk about each of the 4 categories, and then I'll round it out with some resources. All right, let's get started. Number 1, tolerance. This was a pretty common theme in a lot of the comments I received from individuals that regularly attend AA meetings. They want their voice to be heard. Some will choose to pray, and that's fine. That doesn't negate that, they still have their own belief system, but maybe they just want to simply belong. Or maybe they're an atheist and they also pray, which is very normal as well. And then some people, I was told, don't pray. They don't feel comfortable doing it. So tolerance. So, for everyone in the group to just know that just because they're tolerant of your belief system, also they want that same commitment to their belief system, whether it's a woo-woo type of God or a higher power or whatever it may be. So tolerance was a big one that came up in the comments section. And so to me, that means respect, respect for one another. Okay. Number 2, I titled this one, Losing One's Religion. Dramatic, right? So the comments that came up with regards to religion was that, interaction with others in recovery is satisfying. It's soul quenching. It's, I always say this. I always say that we recover from anything. We recover from breakups. We recover from loss. We recover from grief. We recover from addiction. We do it all in community. And so, individuals like going to AA. Some of them, say that that's the best thing that they could contribute to their staying sober. And like I said in the beginning, AA for some people is the biggest show in town. It's the biggest act. It's, the only thing that they have. You want to, maybe you are thinking about going to other meetings, but they just don't fit with your schedule. And so it's AA. And so for losing one's religion, individuals would say to me, stop saying God. Stop saying the God word or referring to that God as he. So for individuals, and there are thousands of atheists and agnostics, from what I understand, that attend AA, that have worked the 12 steps, that have lived a sober, and whatever that means to that person, a sober life. They did so without relying on the prayer answering God, or maybe they did so without relying on anything supernatural. And that's okay. And so the comments that I received really just centered around, no matter what a person's belief system, it's really irrelevant. Sponsors that are good at being sponsors, from what I'm told, don't focus on what their belief system is. They focus on what it is you need and what it is their experience was going through the steps and the thoughts and the feelings associated with that, which I thought was pretty cool. Really, AA for the fellowship is amazing. I mean, I've said it before, I said it again. It's all about community and finding your people. And so, it's less about heaven and hell, and it's more about recovery and sobriety. And sobriety being whatever that means for you. Okay. So that was number 2. Number 3, language. This came up a lot. And I touched on it in Losing One's Religion. Stop saying God. But I do believe that language is so important. And I feel like we're seeing a shift in the addiction field where, we're trying to encourage people to not call themselves addicts and to not refer to their urine as clean or dirty, which is great. This is what we need. Because in the therapy space, for sure, we talk about, self-identifying in so many different ways and how it can be harmful. We don't want young people or old people to think that all they are is an addict. That shouldn't be how you define yourself. It should be more about how you showed up that day. Were you kind? Did you go out of your way for someone other than yourself? Were you honest? Did you get out of bed? Sometimes that's just a big accomplishment right there. So defining yourself is more than just your addiction. It's so important. And so that came up in a lot of the comments. Let's just talk about the language of addiction for 1 minute, shall we? So this brings me to a story that I want to briefly tell about a mother and a son. A mother and her son were being visited by an intern at a rehab facility, and they were doing the assessment. And the intern said to the mom in front of the son, he is an addict, and he needs to come to terms with that. And so the mom became defensive, good for mom, and the son found a bathroom and climbed through the window, never to be seen from the program again. And so I just want to highlight the point that language matters. It's far more than the political correctness, right? I mean, labels that are applied to individuals like addict and dirty urine and clean urine and all of those things, they affect how they're being perceived by others and how they perceive themselves. Stigma and discrimination, are couched in a language that reinforces stereotypes and elicits fear. Language matters. Okay. And I'll also note that, a lot of these comments were from people that were quite happy with AA. So it wasn't just people that were feeling ostracized by any means. So number 4 is coming out of the atheist, agnostic closet. When is it the right time? This is something that the comments didn't touch on, but I wanted to add because I feel like, again, it goes back to, talking about what's on your heart and being able to share who you are, and not keeping that a secret. You want to connect with other people, and you can't do that under the guise of somebody else, of trying to be somebody else and trying to fit in. And so when is the right time to come out of the atheist closet? I would say the answer is it depends. It has to be right for you and you have to feel comfortable. But a couple of reasons why you should come out, and I already mentioned one, but another one is to let newcomers into the space and others know that they can take what they want and leave the rest. This is something that came up pretty often too in the comment sections in social media. And I've heard this with my clients as well. And I like this. I like this a lot. Let's not get so caught up in the prayer answering God and just go through the steps and fill in the parts that you need to fill in. Change the pronouns, do whatever you need to do to make it work for you, to make that incredibly old Bible, AA Bible, work for you. And I'm just being funny. I don't think of it as a Bible, because this is an atheist show. So, okay. The other reason would be to provide an opposing view that just keeps the room from being totally dominated by religion. So I think that would also be important. All right. So before we move on to number 5, which is going to be our resources, I just want to recap what we've talked about so far. So we talked about how to have these difficult conversations when you're in a non-traditional recovery. And hopefully all of you are in a non-traditional recovery. I mean, I think that recovery needs to be individualized. So what works for you might not work for everyone else, but that's okay. That's important to kind of navigate through those muddy waters. Okay. Recap. Number 1 was tolerance, and how important it is to just be tolerant and respectful of other people's views, even if they don't correspond with yours. Just because you decide to pray doesn't mean that you are insert your religion or higher power here. Doesn't mean that you're any less of a spiritual person because you decide to pray. Okay. God, even as I'm reading this, I'm getting caught up because, it's difficult. It's difficult to talk about the higher power. I do it every day in my work, and I still find people struggle, and I struggle with trying to encourage them to say whatever they feel. There's no wrong answer. You're not gonna go to hell because you can't identify your higher power. Sometimes it's a process, and you need to just be accepting of that. Okay. Sorry, we're moving on. 2, losing one's religion. We talked about how AA is the biggest act in town, and we have to find our community. That's so important. And so if that means that you have to join a group that is heavy into God, well, then you need to make sure you're going to feel comfortable and sharing who you are in that space, I think, is really important. Number 3, the language you use. We don't want to identify ourselves as an addict. We don't want to also be told that we're going to go to hell if we don't believe in God. That was one of the comments I think that I had read in my social media. So yeah. So being very careful about the language you use about yourself, and making sure that you're leading with things that you did really well, things that weren't focused on the addiction. And if you're in recovery, there's a lot of things that you're doing really well. And if you're not in recovery, you're going to get there. I know you will. In 4, we talked about coming out of the atheist closet and when is the right time. The answer is it just depends. Okay. Resources. What are the resources available for secular recovery? Well, I have a few, and some of them were past guests of mine. One was Amy Reed of Recovery Dharma. You can check them out. They have tons of meetings online. You have Joe C's book, Beyond Belief, Agnostic Musings for the 12-Step Life. He was also a former guest, and his book is really good. I've read it. You have online secular AA meetings all over. And then this one, I think if you do not mind the F word, if you're not easily offended by the F word, and you don't mind Russell Brand, then you will really like the 12 steps according to Russell Brand. It is uniquely Russell, and so give it a listen, give it a read. And if all else fails, maybe you walk into an AA meeting and say, "Hello, my name is so-and-so, and I will be your token atheist tonight." Or I'm sure you'll come up with something that will help you on your road to recovery. Okay, guys, I hope this was helpful. Thanks. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Atheists in Recovery podcast. For more great info and to stay up to date, head over to atheistsandrecovery.com.